Good evening. My name is Sabrina Nail, and I am the Ombuds with Frederick County Public Schools, and I'll be facilitating this listening session this evening. I know some people are questioning that word, ombuds, and what is an ombuds and what does the ombuds do? So it's an unusual word, but an important resource, and I work with the FCPS community, including students, families, staff, and community members to help them navigate a concern, to work with FCPS, and to help them collaborate and seek options for a resolution. We want to thank you for joining us this evening and for your interest in sharing your personal insights. The purpose of this listening session is to hear directly from the Sabillasville community. The focus will be to learn new information about or new ideas from the community about Sabillasville. At the April 21st, 2021 board meeting, Ms. Barrett made the motion. You can't hear me? It's not for the house. So when you speak, you do have to speak up because we don't have a mic that goes through the cafeteria, through this multi-purpose room. So if everyone would like to move forward, please have a seat and join us. Thank you. So the motion was made at the April 21st board meeting, and it was carried stating Sabillasville Elementary will remain open for the next academic school year, which is the 21-22 school year. The board will appoint 3-member committee to work with the community and evaluate policy 200.3 and associated regulations with regard to school closures. Sabillasville Elementary will, for the 2021-22 school year, be an open enrollment school with potential transportation options from 1 or 2 hubs in Frederick County. So I would now like to introduce the 3 board member committee here with us this evening, who will be listening to you, and I ask that they share a few words. We have with us this evening Liz Barrett, David Bass, and Sue Johnson.
Hi, everybody. So we're using these microphones. Can you all hear me in the back? Okay. So we're using these microphones because this is being recorded for the FCPS channel. So this microphone is for recording only. So it's not actually amplifying our voices as you've figured out by now. So we are having this listening session. As Ms. Nail indicated, there was definitely opportunities to engage more with this community over the first year. We had COVID. So that's one of the reasons that I made the motion to have this, to move on with this process and to continue conversations with the community. We are here to listen tonight. A lot of folks in the community have had great ideas about the future of the school. We've understood a great many things about the value of the school in the community. And I think every single board member shares the interest in the importance of having a community school in every community, right, where students in the community can come together. And I know Sabillasville is an important hub. So again, the situation is the situation, but we will not miss an opportunity to engage and to listen. I did want to make a brief comment about the public charter school process, okay? I think there's been some confusion in the community about, well, the board can't talk about that or the board can't hear that. Absolutely. If you all want to share ideas or share thoughts tonight about anything, this is your listening session, okay? Board members are not going to respond. We're here to listen. And the reason there's 3 of us is because if we had 4 board members, we'd have quorum. And then we'd have to do the whole shenanigan with an opens meeting and everything like that. So we're recording the meeting and we're avoiding quorum so there's not like a group of people who could make a decision together or hear things together. That's just how we have to do our work. So that's why there's 3 of us. The board will be hearing a charter school application And we have to do that in a public session, and we have to listen to that, and we have to evaluate that on its merits. And that conversation just has to be separate from the conversation about the future of the school building. That's just the way the charter school process works, and that's the way the school closure conversation works. So, you know, if you folks have any specific questions about that, feel free to reach out to the board, because I know it's confusing and it sounds like a bunch of red tape because it's, you know, it's the government, right? So that's the situation. But reach out to us, and reach out to Ms. Nail is an excellent liaison if you have questions. We have a charter school liaison. We have, you know, lots of folks in central office who'd be happy to answer questions as well. So sorry for all that talking. I just wanted to give a little bit more background.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to briefly introduce myself. I'm David Bass. I'm one of the Board of Education members here tonight. And I just wanted to say that, right, we have many important roles and functions to perform as board members. I really think that listening, right, listening to community members is one of our most important roles. I really, really appreciate each of you taking some time this evening to come and share your ideas. So thank you very much for being here.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sue Johnson. I'm also on the board, along with my colleagues here. We were the 3 members that voted to keep Sabillasville open for this year. And I just wanted to thank you all for coming out. This is a small, beautiful community. I personally just drove up from Jefferson, and the reason why it's raining is because we were trying to get round bales in the barn. So I think a lot about what equity involves and what the school means to this community. And I would like to just emphasize, as my colleagues have said, we need to, as a community, listen together to each other to figure out what is the best path forward for Sabillasville Elementary School. As my colleague said, we have a balance to maintain, and that is fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers, but also serving the needs of our community and, most importantly, our students. So I'm here with my ears wide open. Thank you once again for taking time out of your, I'm sure, busy schedules to come and give us feedback on what we can do to keep Sabillasville on the best path forward. Thank you.
So let me provide you with a brief overview about how we'll go about the session this evening. So we have a shared understanding of the process. We'd ask that you turn off all electronic devices. Again, this is being recorded. We are recording the session, and the video will be available within 72 hours on the FCPS YouTube channel. If you would like to speak, again, the microphones are not projecting, so please use your loud voice, outside voice. And we ask that you move to the microphone so that we can hear you. And we would like for everyone who wishes to speak to have that opportunity to share their perspective. Please state your name before beginning your comments, and we're asking to please be concise so that we have enough time for everyone who does want to share. You're welcome to follow up again directly with any board member to have a dialogue and have a question. You can email them. I have brochures for the Office of the Ombuds if you have questions. And if there's a question that's off topic or more information, again, that's the best way to communicate with the board, is to ask to start via email, and then they can communicate with you by phone or set up an appointment, however you'd like to move forward. The 3 board members that are here are working with you to listen to the Sabillasville community. Again, their goal is to gather information and take that back to the full Board of Education to continue the discussion in an open forum with all the board members there. As Ms. Barrett mentioned about the charter school, they're unable to answer questions or have a discussion. But again, if you have new information or would like to share that information, feel free to do so. The charter school interests must be presented to the full board and are guided by COMAR. So that's the guiding regulations that they need to follow. Do you have any questions? Okay, so now we'd like to open the floor for sharing. The board members are ready to hear from you. Who would like to begin? Thank you.
I think all three of you probably know me really well at this point, but as a formal introduction, I am Alicia Yoakum, and I am the current president of the Sabillasville Elementary Parent-Teacher Organization. And on behalf of our community, we appreciate you guys coming out and listening. Like, we just can't say it enough how much, like, to know that as elected officials, you're coming out and you're hearing what we have to say. It's so important in the process. While we think our community has offered many potential solutions for keeping the school open in the past year when we've been working with Mr. Young, tonight we wanted to focus on two of what we think are the most viable options and provide some feedback to those two options. The first is open enrollment. While we understand that there wasn't much engagement with the open enrollment process for this year, we think there are several reasons for that. So we wanted to give some feedback into that. The survey that was sent out to the Yellow Springs community last year, we felt like in reviewing the reports that did not have complete data. There was no option to include the total number of students per household. So to us, it looked like each response was only counting as one student, when in reality, there could have been 2 or 3 kids per household. So we just kind of like to look at those numbers. And then with both the survey sent to Yellow Springs and the one that just went out this past spring for open enrollment for the 2021-2022 school year, we felt like it had little information about the background, what was happening with the school, class sizes, the fact that it was a 5-star school, those sort of things. So the feedback we received in getting calls to the school, on social media, parents reaching out to us, they were very confused about what exactly was happening. And I think, you know, although our community understands and we've been in the process for 2 years, it seems like those outside the community don't really have a lot of knowledge and background. So we think it's really important to kind of give that specific information to those outside of our community. The third is the marketing of the open enrollment process. This past spring, there were only 2 Find Out First emails that went out to promote open enrollment. And kind of going back to what we were saying about having more information out there, it seemed like the better plan would have been to have an orientation session or an information night here at the school or virtually so that parents could hear firsthand about the process for open enrollment, what it would be like here at SES. They could ask questions because there clearly is a lot of questions out there from the community. And lastly, we heard from a lot of parents who were interested in the open enrollment option, but they were not ready to move their student for 1 year. So not knowing if this was going to be a 1-year deal or a 5-year deal, they weren't ready to make that commitment, especially after a pandemic when their child's already gone through so much challenge and change over the past year, 2 years. So those are just some of the feedback and suggestions we have on how that could be improved and how we might get more open enrollment through that process. The second viable option, I'm glad, Ms. Barrett, that you kind of clarified things because I think this whole time we've really been trying to push a conversion charter option, which is a different thing than a charter school. And we have been told over and over again that it is a conflict of interest, that we cannot discuss that with the board. So I think as a community, knowing that this is going to impact our future of this community for forever, really, we deserve to understand why we cannot talk about the conversion charter school as a solution. For those that aren't aware, a conversion charter school is just when the Board of Education and the community decides to turn a public school into a charter school. I think I've mentioned this in several of my public comments, but we've talked to members of the Maryland Department of Education, the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools, and professionals who work in managing charter schools across the country. And all of them confirm that a conversion charter is a very solid solution to our problem. So we can't find any laws or policies that would prohibit us from talking to you as the board with that solution. So I'm asking tonight if we could please, as a community, get a better understanding of why we cannot talk to you as the Board of Education about a conversion charter school. We certainly understand that with that becomes, there needs to be a charter application and those sort of things, but in talking with the other professionals, it's more of an opportunity to sit down around the table and make the charter school option work. So that's all we have for tonight as far as the two most viable solutions, but we're hoping that you'll be able to take that feedback and use it. Thank you.
Alicia was a much better public speaker than I am, but I'll do my best. So first of all, thank you for meeting with us tonight. We appreciate your efforts to meet with our community. My name is Barbara Doney. I do teach here at Sabillasville Elementary, and I also live in the community. Today, I would like to talk about some of the ideas that have been mentioned in regards to keeping Sabillasville open. The first idea, as Alicia had said, was open enrollment. We appreciate the open enrollment suggestion. However, we find that some parents weren't willing to send their child to SES for 1 year without knowing what the next year was going to be. That's a big decision to pull your kid out of the school you're at, bring them here, and not know what the future is going to be. And then the uncertainty of transportation was another big problem as parents considered this opportunity. It's hard as a parent to commit to sending their child to Sabillasville without the guarantee of transportation or a clearly explained plan for students and families. Having to wait to see how many kids would be coming to SES before knowing if transportation would be provided is not really a feasible thing for parents. If you're truly interested in trying open enrollment, which, by the way, school choice is very appealing to many parents, the board would really need to make a commitment to the idea of a true open enrollment. You would need to commit to monitoring the idea for a period of years. For example, commit to a 6-year open enrollment plan with transportation provided. This would allow parents to know that the school would be open and they could enroll their child from kindergarten and know that they could follow the whole way through and not be worried about if their child's going to have to constantly go back and forth schools. We really need a commitment. Second, the board needs to investigate that idea of a charter school. There's a lot of confusion about the conversion charter school, and we're told, no, we don't qualify. We qualify 3 out of the items, but not the 4th one, and so that's a no, but that's not what we hear from Maryland Alliance Charter. So there really needs to be an open conversation so that the board understands our viewpoint and we understand your viewpoint and we can figure out what the correct requirements actually are. And then a third idea is a totally different charter school, the Sabillasville Environmental School, which would be a classical charter school that needs to be discussed. The board has sent mixed messages regarding that idea, whether they can talk to us about it or not. When it was first proposed, the board seemed really interested, and now we're not allowed to, we seem like we're not allowed to even say the word to a board member, but Liz, thank you for clarifying that for us today. Many of the community members are excited about the idea of using the natural resources in our environment to support an environmental program. And that would be a really, I feel, a good way for the board to think outside the box. Use what we have up here, and how can you let the rest of the county students who do not get this opportunity to have the opportunity our students have. Finally, we have no idea what is going to happen with COVID in the future and health concerns. FCPS may frankly need the square footage to ensure a safe and healthy learning environment for students. Our SES students, like others in the county, will be dealing with emotional challenges caused by this pandemic for years to come. Now is not the time to add another emotional hurdle for students who attend SES. In closing, I would like to close with a few considerations for the Board of Ed that a simple Google search found when schools are closed. Test scores for students fall the year before and after a school closing. Currently, SES scores should make SCPS proud, including our farm students. Please keep in mind that many in our community earn less than a median salary in Frederick County, yet students score well on local and state assessments. If they move to a school that's not academically stronger, our student scores will tend to decline. Students and parents become less involved in their child's education. just because it's too far to go and be that involved. A town loses its identity when it loses a school. The demise of local schools can also lead to the closure of local businesses and expedite population losses. There will be longer bus rides, and a larger school won't be able to replicate the culture and the climate of a smaller school. Thank you.
I haven't spoken with the mask on in quite some time, but so my name is Jesse Pippi. I'm a state delegate. I represent this community as well as all the residents of Sabillasville. And I, like you three, are here as well to listen. I will tell you that the members of the delegation that represent this community support this school, and we're following this situation very closely. I also want to remind the school board members of how supportive the delegation is for education in this county and for funding. And I'm hoping that we can come to an amicable resolution so that the parents and the teachers in this community can see something good happen here. I've been following this closely over the past couple of years, and I know there's been some debate about whether voices have been heard, and it was just important for me to come out tonight to make sure that everyone behind us voice is being heard, and that message will be taken back to the rest of the board. And I know that the delegation will be following up with the school board on this particular school closely. So I'm just happy to be here. I want to thank the three of you for coming and listening to the members, and I want to thank all the folks behind us for coming out tonight as well. So thank you.
Hello, my name's Robert Kuntz. I've sent some letters in throughout this process for the newer members. I haven't quite been as engaged recently, been quite busy, but I wanted to express first thank you for coming and trying to do this process the correct way. As a community, when we first learned of this possibility, we kind of got together and saw that it was kind of being forced through the first time. We had many concerns with everything. We've already gone through that, and I trust that this time we're going to handle it differently. Some of the concerns that we had, that we never felt addressed properly were some of the financial concerns and the maintenance expenses and the building condition. We've asked for things numerous times not to receive them. We'd like a little bit more transparency on that, and then maybe this time around, when we're looking at pure per pupil funding or things of that nature, and we look at that against a charter school, we pay attention to the savings in addition to just closing the school. I feel like that's been overlooked as well. And my position has always been that this community should have a public school. My position is still that. I am very impressed with the charter efforts that are going on, and I think it's a very good solution, but I still have a belief that this community, as taxpayers, we should have a public school. It's already here, we're not asking for one. We've already seen that migration is happening out of denser population areas recently. So when we do have full enrollment and Thurmont develops again, and then you have to do a capital project and build a new school, there's no savings there. So we need to engage on the charter. We always saw that as a way for us to ensure that we have a school here. I think it's a great idea. The agricultural, environmental, it just makes perfect sense. It almost makes more sense than a public school. But again, I think the issue is that this community should have a public school. Thank you.
We're not responding directly, but Mr. Keys, you had mentioned that made a request for some specific information that you had not received. So if you want to forward that to the board members here, we'll make sure that that information gets to you. Okay? Thank you. Yeah.
Just to repeat for both the video and to make sure we have it, it was some of the maintenance and
via email and some concerns that I sent in, asking about that number. I just feel like we haven't addressed that. And again, if a community is going to essentially take over the responsibility for that, we definitely need to know if the building is negative 3 times what it's worth. So I think, yeah, I can request that from you directly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we speaking up? Good. My name's Deb Abraham Spalding. I publish the Catoctin Banner newspaper, which is North County's Good News Monthly. I hope to someday publish a good news story that the school's staying open. I wanted to touch base about marketing, and before doing that, I wanted to say thank you for voting and for being here. We appreciate it. To go forward in a positive manner, I think it's important for some marketing for the open enrollment, for people to know about it. I had contacted Alicia a couple of months ago, and I said, hey, I'll put an ad in the paper for the open enrollment. And she said, oh, it's already over. So we need to know, it's not being communicated very well. Also, I wanted to talk about the outreach for potential enrollees. In Friends Creek, they have a Emmitsburg zip code, so they're going to Emmitsburg Elementary. They're very close and would probably come here. I was raised in Foxville, and I still have, my parents are still there. They have a Smithsburg, Washington County address. They have a Myersville phone number, and we attended this school and Thurmont schools. So it's all a big old mess. I don't know if the people on Tower Road still come here, or do they go to Thurmont? My point is, they would probably come here if they had a choice. So I think they're the main things, and again, thank you, and that's all.
I'm George Kuhn, and for introduction for the newer members, I'm a past educator of 42 years at Catoctin and a resident of Sabillasville since 1962, and an organizer and a charter member of the Northwestern Frederick County Civic Association. This is not one of my topics, but I would like to follow up with an earlier speaker that spoke about open enrollment. I attended a board meeting when that was offered as a suggestion, you remember, but I feel it was only a token suggestion because they only surveyed Yellow Springs School. And they got a meager response, maybe 5 or 6. I think if the open enrollment concept would have been offered to more schools, there would have been a lot more students. So I'd like you to pursue that direction. The topics I wanted to address were the uniqueness of this school and how it is the focal point of the community. And it has been for years and years. The voting place. We have a residence center for Victor Cullen up here where juvenile offenders are located. There's numerous conflicts with that facility where the community needs to be involved. There's no other place in our community that could host a public meeting when a conflict occurs like that. And those meetings have been held here. As a member of the Northwestern Frederick County Civic Association, an organization of over 35 years, our only fundraiser has been this facility, which we've paid for the proper way, and we've been able to raise enough money over the years of approximately 35 to provide over 60 scholarships for students that graduated from this school. And it was restrictive. You had to be a student that attended Sabillasville for most of those scholarships. Right now, closing the school eliminates that potential for our organization or any other organization. Another factor I'd like to address, when we had earlier meetings about closing Sabillasville, I did a distance and travel survey. I went over to the Washington County border and drove back to this school. I went down to French Creek to the farthest end at Hornets Nest Road, where some of our families live, and drove back up here and measured the distance. The average distance was 3.8 miles that those students would be riding. If you'd ever consider hauling those students to Thurmont, that distance would more than double. It's about 8.9 miles to the eastern end of Thurmont. Considering the weather conditions and the uniqueness of our area, that scares me, riding down 550 in the wintertime and the way we have snows up here. Another thing I'd like to address, in one of your earlier meetings with the previous board, and not all of you, Dr. Alban was questioned. She brought up the point that possibility of losing Title I funding for this school. And she said it would happen. There was no way to get around it. I know for a fact, because I have read the federal regulations about Title I funding, and I know there is a waiver provision that is available. You only need 2 or 3 things to meet that waiver condition. And one, our school would definitely satisfy those 2 or 3 if you consider the uniqueness of the geographic location. Next to Washington County, next to Pennsylvania, and settled in between 2 mountain ridges here in the northern end of Frederick County. The second factor that would be unique would be that we are often largely dependent upon the students that would come from the housing development at Camp David. That's a factor that goes up and down depending upon whether the president uses that camp. If the president doesn't use it, the staff is reduced over there. Everybody knows that. The housing development enrollment goes down. If the president starts using it, they bring more federal employees in. So that's an important factor that has an impact on our school enrollment. Another factor that has affected our school enrollment is the ag preservation program that our county is promoting. Many of the farms here in the area are under the ag preservation program, and that program limits the building capacity for a number of years. And most of the area farms are under that. So we don't have building like you would in another area that would increase our enrollment. Those are a couple of the factors that I think should really be considered. And I'll close by saying I've attended a lot of meetings, and I'm really proud of the fact that you brought board members up here for a meeting. I really think this process should have been started a long time ago, but it's better late than never, and I congratulate you all for coming. Wish you a lot of luck.
Are there others who would like to speak? Sir?
Hi, my name's Dave Harmon, and I grew up right up the road here. And Coach, thanks for going before me, because I was waiting until after you went before me. I'm going to keep my comments brief this evening. I did speak when we were together here several months ago and everything, and I would like to reinforce some of the things that the coach said. And one of them is that, as I stated before, that this is more than a school to this community. This is our community center. A lot of communities, and you can go to Thurmont and Emmitsburg, a lot of other small towns. Everything that goes on in that town centers around the fire department. That goes way, way back in history. A lot of the activities in those communities were centered around the fire department because everything happened at the fire hall. We don't have that here, okay? We're serviced by Blue Ridge Mountain, Thurmont, and Emmitsburg, Fountaindale, and other fire departments around us. So this is truly our community center. But the good part about that is it's not just for the Northwestern Civic Association. It's for the mountaintop activities in conjunction with the second week in October Color Fest in Thurmont. But it's not just for those activities, because guess what's involved in every single one of those communities? And yes, we have churches in our area as well, that a lot of the kids that go here attend those churches. But guess where they're at when those activities are going on? They're here, okay? They're helping raise money for the school, which means they're helping in their community. They're learning about fiscal responsibility, how to make change, how to interface and communicate with people, and that's all part of our community here at Sabillasville. So again, it's more than just a school to us, and we need to keep that. I really appreciate you folks that pushed through and extended the school year for here, but I personally feel that's not enough. I think we can go above and beyond that and go for a longer amount of time until we make a decision on what direction we want to go. And I also support the charter school idea. And maybe we can do that in the future if that's one of the solutions. But there's a lot of confusion about that. Everybody's talked about marketing, and they've talked about the confusion to people, okay? When people hear charter school, for example, a lot of people think you got to be rich, and it costs a lot of money to send your kids to a charter school, okay? That can't be anything further from the truth. All right, so you talk about marketing and communication. Let's talk about the will, which we have, and let's find a way to keep this school open longer, okay? One thing I'll throw out to you, and I'll fess up, I grew up in this community, but I live on the other side of the mountain, okay? I'm in Washington County. There was a will and a way over there. They were supposed to close 2 schools this year, okay? One of them was Cascade Elementary School right up here on the mountain. Guess what? That school's staying open. We can do the same thing here in Frederick County. Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Mark Beal. My wife and I are both members of the PTO. We're probably the newest members, but I guess we've only been up here for about 3 years. We have 2 young children. One has started kindergarten last year. She'll be in 1st grade this year. And the other one, hopefully, she'll be able to continue up here. First off, I'd like to thank you guys, you 3 specifically. Seems like 3 years ago when we started getting involved in this, it was kind of like parents and teachers versus Board of Ed. Now it's kind of like you guys are helping to work with us, and we can work with you. So thank you. Nice job. To piggyback on what Mr. George has said, you know, this school has been the center of a lot of community involvement. One is the biggest fundraiser that the Civics Association has put on. They offer 2 scholarships a year for a long time. So with the Board of Education, we're trying to work, with the PTO, we're trying to work with the Civics Association and offer at least that much to continue. So it's not like it's you know, the attendance is falling off. We're getting strong members in the community, and we're trying to repurpose that and grow. So if you guys are worried about, you know, something that might depreciate over time, hopefully we can keep that going. The agricultural program with the county, a lot of the land is being reserved and put into agricultural programs. And it's hundreds of acres that are being set aside, and that's a county-run and even a state-run program most of the time, and you can't develop this land. So I feel like it's being pushed by the county, especially up here. Most cases, you need 10 acres to build a house up here. That's a lot of land. So it's kind of being pushed by the county, and then now I feel like some of the rural areas are getting kind of penalized for preserving the land. And I think that's a lot of what this community is about. That's about all I got. But once again, thank you guys very much. You guys, thank you.
Can I say something? So the point that a couple of you have made now, and you, sir, have just made, is one that I've been on. These two have not had the the pleasure of the last 3 years of the Sabillasville conversation. And one of the things I was really hopeful about is to hear new information, right? And folks have had time to reflect. And I can go back and read all the minutes again, but sitting there as a board member, and I have listened, I never remembered anybody articulating as specifically the issue about, you know, kind of the notion of being penalized for ag preservation, right? So, you know, in the rest of the county, you know, development continues, but preserve land, you wouldn't even have the option to increase your enrollment. So, you know, I've lots of good ideas tonight, but I just wanted to comment that, you know, these conversations are so important. So as you think about these things, or you think about things to add to the conversation, you know, we can't sit up here and hear your ideas every day, but do continue to email them and share them with the board. So this conversation isn't just for tonight, it's ongoing, but I wanted to share that.
Sorry, as I was sitting there, some other thoughts came to me. As Mr. Kuhn pointed out about the Title I waiver, I would just ask that you go back in our appeal process that we submitted to appeal the closure that the Board of Education voted on in December. Our attorney actually included information about the Title I waiver and how we would be eligible for that. So I would ask that you continue to look into that option, because as Mr. Kuhn said, you know, we've been told numerous times that that is not a viable option. And I think last year we were 1 student short of the qualification, but obviously we had a lot of families who pulled out because of COVID and were homeschooling. And then my other comment is, for the open enrollment, I would also ask that you look into what is the threshold? How many students are you looking to obtain through open enrollment? I think currently for the upcoming year we have around 70 students. And when we started this discussion, the whole reason for closure was because they said it wasn't feasible to have only 3 teachers if our numbers got down to 50. But with 80, we have 4 teachers. We do mixed classrooms, and that's been working really well. In fact, a lot of parents have seen a lot of benefits to the mixed classroom. It kind of advances the younger students and things like that. So that's another point I just wanted to make in looking at, you know, are you only looking to get to that 80 mark or 100, or what are those thresholds? Is it really just about staffing? And if it comes down to the financial issue, I know a lot of the questions were around the per pupil ratio, and unfortunately, with the decision to close the school in December, we lost all of our teachers, most who have been here for 20 or 25 years in the Frederick County Public School system. And so I would really like to see this year, with all the new teachers, what that ratio comes out to be, because the salaries will probably be significantly less. You know, the operation of the building is not that much when you pull out teacher salaries. It's only around like 100,000. So in a grand scheme of things, really look at those budget numbers. Thank you.
Are there others who would like to speak?
Hi, my name's Shannon Chambers. So my oldest kid will go to kindergarten this year here, and I have a younger kid that hopefully will also go here. This might seem like a random comment, but it's something I thought of. I mean, I live here, and I found a daycare in the area, which was good, but I think if you wanted to up enrollment, whether it's public school, charter school, would be if you offered before and after school care. I think that would really up the numbers here, both for people who live locally, and if people are driving their kids here, they might be able to make the morning or the afternoon, but not both. So that's just something I feel like, I mean, if the numbers need to be a certain way, a certain number, when you're bringing in open enrollment, I just feel like that would up the willingness. But like people said, they want to be guaranteed for more than a year for continuity of their kid and friends and things like that. So, but I do think that would up the numbers. So, both locally and bringing in more people. So, thank you.
Repeat performances here, you guys. So more it's questions about the process from here, and also some of the, like you commented about the agricultural community and how that plays in. Former Mayor Marty Burns had talked about that at one of his former talks when he got up with everybody. But I think as in general, we don't know that. You know, it's those who do know would, of course, be able to speak to that, but just as, you know, we don't know all those little specifics that might help our case, you know what I mean? So really, my question was, what is the process from here? What happens? Do we know what happens? Or is there a timeline or any of that?
So the question was, what's the process from here? So I'm not going to try to give an exhaustive history of the details here because I'm going to get it wrong. Suffice to say that the board has been considering closing this school for a couple of years, and the reasons primarily have been because of declining enrollment and the cost of operating a building, because there is a required number of staff and there's all the maintenance and other costs of operating the building. The enrollment has been declining or flat. There's not projected growth in the area. I'm expressing the reasons. I'm not speaking that this is the board's perspective for, but that was the recommendation that was made to the superintendent. And most recently, the board voted to close the school last year, and then we reversed that decision for a couple of reasons, mostly having to do with the need for more engagement. There were some procedural issues with potential hearing that wasn't held. COVID happened. So that this conversation, again, is part of that engagement process. So next steps, we'll have this meeting tonight. There are other things happening on separate tracks, such as the board will hear a charter school application. That's a separate issue. But as the board continues to consider, we made a commitment that we would keep the school open for the coming school year. But and I don't have the date, right? There is a date mandated that we will make the decision to keep the school open for the next year in the future or make a different decision. So, and I think that would be closer to the winter time. If I recall the calendar correctly, it would just be within the next 6 months or so. But we can get a clearer timeline out to the community, if that's okay.
One of the things that has had a tremendous effect on our community has been the uncertainty of what's going to happen. If you assume the role of a parent that's got some children that are pre-K or kindergarten, and they don't have any guarantee that next year their school's going to be open, they're going to haul them down to Thurmont. We have that happening now in our community where pre-K kindergarten students are riding with their mother and dad to Thurmont rather than being enrolled here. So I encourage you to try to be far-reaching in your thinking and get some stability and some consistency in what we're going to do here so that the average parent feels a little more secure and a little safer with what they're doing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tansy Logue. I live up on Diebold Road. I am actually one of those parents. My son is in pre-K. The area itself, there's not a whole lot of before and after care. There's not a lot of providers. So my son goes with me to Frederick where he attends pre-K. I was going to suggest, is there a possibility to add a pre-K inclusion program similar to Lewistown Elementary that can open that up? I know a lot of the residents in Thurmont can't get their kids into pre-K programs there, but they send them to St. John's just because of flexibility. So I think for a lot of the residents, I know my previous neighbors that live behind me, they actually sent both of their kids that could have gone to Sabillasville into Thurmont because there were no other options for them. So I would just like for you guys to consider that as something that you guys could expand on to increase enrollment. Thank you.
There's no pre-K program at Sabillasville?
No. You said that you wouldn't bring it here.
I didn't say that.
What said that? I can't hear.
If I can just make a comment about the pre-K program.
So it's all recorded.
Sure.
I asked to just confirmation that there was no pre-K program here because I was not 100% sure. It got confirmed that there is none, that it had been asked for, and that we had said no. Okay.
Yes, so we did suggest pre-K as one of the solutions in the long list of solutions last year. But I believe we were told that pre-K would not count in our student numbers when it comes to the per pupil expenditures, so it wouldn't really help offset the cost. But again, it comes down to what's really the reason why we're closing the school. Is it staffing? Is it finances? Is it a combination? And then the other reason was that it would require more staffing, and so that was part of the concern with the pre-K program. But the reason we did suggest it are, like people are mentioning, because we know many people are not accepted into the pre-K program at Thurmont. It fills up. And so everyone in the northern part of the county is expected to then pay for private preschool. That's what I did for both of my children because there were no options for me for a pre-K program besides to pay for it privately. So that's kind of some of the background and the response that we heard when we suggested the pre-K program.
And on the pre-K subject, when my son, 21 21 minus pre-K, what's that? Yeah. When he tried to get into Thurmont, it was a new program. He ended up going to Emmitsburg because it was full. But if you think about those who are driving wherever for their pre-K experience, again, you get into where your kids are making friends and you want continuity, you know, to make the stress the least amount it can be, especially in these times. So if we put a seed program here in a pre-K, that they're more than likely to continue, I'm chewing on this, with the friends that they make and at the school. So kind of seems like a no-brainer. It helps. That's all. So back to the what do we do now? Because we've all been kind of.
I wonder if the mic comes off there. If you wanted to, yeah, that should work.
We've all been kind of floating. Oh, am I good?
You're fine.
We've all been kind of floating around trying to figure out what to do, right? And so we're here thinking, okay, what do we do? And we're all timidly, well, not me at my 20th time, but, you know, trying to say things and thinking, okay, we said that when we had a couple hundred people in the room. How many were here for that, you know? And now we're this many people in the room. My point is, at some point, we were told we were going to form a committee. So let's say you guys, you're on our team. You came here, you're putting in time. We appreciate it. Are we the group now that can make this go forward? Can we pull the tables together and say, okay, you do this and you do that, and we're going to make it happen? You know, we need a place to dig in and to go forward. So we kind of feel like, let me speak for all of you, assuming that we've been 2 times into Frederick, we've been here 2 times, I think, voicing, and we're still here. So we want to dig in and get to progress. Yeah. Okay. Help us do that. Progress is getting the mic back.
Thank you.
Can I ask a couple questions, if that's all right? I think we kind of want to know, from a standpoint of where we stand, what is the Board of Education's agenda? Is there a background to what's going on, or is it strictly based on numbers? Would you be willing, is the Board of Education willing to help us do a charter school? Or is that something that you guys are, I mean, you understand?
I mean, I think it certainly was the declining enrollment that drove the initial decision to recommend closing Sabillasville. And so I think the idea of keeping the school open is about increasing enrollment numbers.
Okay.
But we can't, as we've said, we can't speak to the charter school at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, this isn't, so there are 3 of us here tonight. We are individuals, and we don't speak on behalf of the full board. So we're here to listen and gather ideas, to share those ideas with the full board as we continue the deliberation. So I think when I heard you, I thought about your specific question, which is, will the board work with us? I think that's what we're trying to do, and I realize the process has not been graceful at all. It's been a lot of stops and starts. My own kids were redistricted a couple of years ago, and that was stressful. But that happened with like a clear decision. We had we had a couple conversations over a year, and then it happened. that was stressful for me as a parent. So I do have the empathy where we've had stops and starts here, that it must be very difficult to be a parent and make those decisions in this community, more so because of all the stops and starts. But the board, if the board votes to approve a potential charter school application, then the school system would work with the charter school applicant to open a charter school. So that's the extent of how working together with a charter school applicant would work. The board has not heard that application or any application, and the board has to do that work together. So, but we're here to listen just to other ideas.
Yeah.
So at each board meeting, there's a quarterly agenda that is posted that is a dynamic document, so it can change. But at the last board meeting, there's a quarterly agenda that is presented at each and every board meeting. And at the last board meeting, it states that on September the 8th, Sabillasville Environmental School, a classical charter, there will be an action taken, which means that we'll hear information and the board will take action on that classical charter. So that is scheduled for September the 8th as of right now.
So do we all vote in again and comment for that? I'll just sit up here and hold the mic. So do we all go and be there and say things again? Yeah.
Public comment is always open on action items. And appreciate it. Thank you. Sir, go ahead.
Liz Barrett, I want to thank you very much because you stopped this when this was happening and gave us a chance to work on this a little bit. And we appreciate what you did that night. And for the rest of you two, I'm glad you're here in support of this school. It needs all it can. But one thing I want to make perfectly clear, this school needs very little maintenance to it. It has a brand new roof on it within the last year or so. It has 2 brand new boilers here. If them boilers don't last 50 years like the other ones did, well, somebody better be getting on the ball with whoever put them in. It has all new lighting in this school. The only thing that probably really ever needs done is maybe some new glass put in to be more energy efficient. This school has its own septic. It has no environmental impact with anybody else. This is a perfect school and it needs to stay here. My wife has worked here 33 years. We'd like to see it stay. You need to do whatever it takes and do it. I don't want to hear Mrs. Alban again. Thank you.
Well, I'm the other half of that's been here for the 33 years. So I do want to tell you, though, thank you. My name is Michelle Fermi. I do want to tell you, though, that this has not been a last 3-year thing of declining enrollment. Like I said, I've been here for 33 years. This has been an ongoing conversation for probably the past 15. It always comes up. It was always brought up as a budget item in the past, and then at one point it was said, no more, it's not going to be a budget item. So we thought we were good. Well, then you found something else, not you personally, because I appreciate you all being here because you have stood for us, so we appreciate it. But I feel like we're the target all the time, or we've been for the past 15 years. The board made that decision to close us, so I don't blame them, and I miss them terribly, but all my former staff left. There's only 3 of us here, Mrs. Savage, the secretary, Mrs. Doney, and me. Everybody else is new. Oh, well, she's back here, but she's a semi-new. She's a rookie. She's a rookie. She don't count. But, I mean, everybody left, and that was one of the budget things they brought up before, was that we had teachers that had been in the system so long their salaries were high. Well, I'm sorry, but that's, the way it is. And they did stay because they loved it here. They taught here for years, and this was their second home. I mean, it is to all of us, and these kids are our kids. I mean, I work with special ed kids, but I also work with everybody in the building. I mean, the first grade teacher's kids, they aren't just her kids. She's, with everybody. So it is a special place, and even if we are small, we always tell the kids we're small, but we're mighty. And I think we've done a pretty good job for the last 50-some years because we have been around for more than 50. So I really think, I don't understand the point about the pre-K either. Why does that not count? I don't understand that. Do you? Anybody know that answer to that? Because those
So
kids,
pre-K,
they're potentially going to be kindergartners.
Yeah, so pre-K in Frederick County is the, and things might be changing a little bit because we have a pile of new money, the ESSR money that's coming, and some of that would be to expand pre-K, but that's limited time money. So keep following that conversation if you haven't been, because we're all going to be digging deeply into that. So pre-K numbers don't count for your enrollment numbers. Pre-K just doesn't count toward enrollment. So now you would assume, so our funding comes from the state and the county, and it's based on the number of students enrolled the previous year. So the funding is based on the count from last year. The pre-K students, some of them, our pre-K programs are not at every single elementary school. So not every student in a pre-K program, including some of the inclusive programs where they mix general ed pre-K students with special needs or students who've identified as special ed in pre-K in the same classroom, they all wouldn't necessarily be districted to go to the school.
Right.
So it complicates the enrollment question those two different ways. Now, that's not to say that's not a conversation that, if we hear more from the community about pre-K and preschool and before and after care, I mean, these are the viable sorts of conversations that we would bring back to the full board as things we've heard that you're interested in talking more about.
Yeah, I also think too you've had so many children with the pandemic that their parents have decided, to keep them home. So yes, our numbers are, and I'm sure that's everywhere, the numbers have gone down due to that too. And then with the numbers starting to rise again, those parents, I know several, I've spoken to them, that they're not going to put them back in. So yes, our numbers are going to be lower. So, but I think too, we need the space, and with the amount of students we have, we need that space to separate them, during this. So, I mean, who knows how long it's going to last, but I don't know. But thank you for all you have done for us, and we really do appreciate it, but thank you.
My aide is telling me that I have to leave, so I just wanted to make a couple points. It sounds like there's a lot of questions still remaining, maybe on this end, about enrollment, funding, and then expenses. So we had a very poignant question over here about the actual maintenance expenses. And I think it's fair to say that the taxpayers here should at least have a good idea of what those things equate to. That way everybody can make a good decision. Because right now it sounds like you guys have a lot of the information, but maybe folks back here don't have as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the PTO president a stack of my cards, and then Mr. Bass, I'm going to follow up with you on those 3 points: funding, enrollment, and expenses, to ensure that everybody has all the information they need, and then as a community we can make good decisions going forward. So, but I, again, appreciate you being here, letting me speak. You don't want to give me a microphone any longer, but thank you.
Thank you. And after you serve,
I just
if there
thought
are
of
additional folks, especially folks who haven't spoken yet, please come up.
I just thought of one thing that I know was discussed at a previous board meeting, and I don't think any action was taken on it, but transportation, buses leave Sabillasville School. I'm not sure if there's 2 trips or not, but I know they go to the high school and the middle school, and they come back empty and sit out here all day long, and then they go back in the evening empty to pick up the students. And you got to think outside the box a little bit. If there's some program that could be offered here that wouldn't be offered in Thurmont, and those students could come back up on the empty bus and participate all day long and go back when the same bus goes back to pick up students, it's a no-cost item. You're just offering a program to students that's not available somewhere else, and it's not costing 1 cent for transportation due to the uniqueness of how the transportation system is. Something to think about. It's a little bit outside the box.
With the parents that decide to send their kids next year or this year to a virtual school, what happens with the funding that would have been allotted to that student? Like, say one of the students for this school decided to go virtual. What happens to the funding? Is that still allocated for this school, or is that now dedicated to the virtual school? And where is the virtual school based?
It's the funding is still allocated for their home school, so
Okay.
the virtual school numbers, I don't have the exact final number, but those numbers don't necessarily change the number of teachers. So our cost per pupil, as has been indicated, is always associated, number one, with staffing. So we still need to staff classroom teachers, and we need to staff dedicated virtual teachers.
Sure.
And the board made the decision that we would not do that concurrent teaching thing where teachers were like trying to, teach two places at the same time. So the virtual school stuff costs money, and so the per pupil stuff stays with the home school, and hopefully it works out that way. That
is there a base or a hub for the virtual classroom? Do teachers do it from home? I know there's a principal. It's structured like a school, correct?
I don't know where I think they don't teach from home. Huh? We don't know.
I guess where I was going with is there a possibility we could use some space in this school as a virtual classroom for teachers to come to if they didn't have the space or the means to do it at home? Could we allocate a spot in here just as a repurpose kind of thing?
Yeah, and I'll just mention that we're here to listen, but I would like to just have the community know that we've already been meeting, and some of the things that we have talked about amongst the three of us, not in a quorum, as individuals on the board, on what we could do to help keep Sabillasville the thriving community school. And we did talk about special programs. We talked about before and after school care. We talked about pre-K. We talked about special ed, but that didn't go as far as we wanted because there were some hiccups with that. So, like, we're trying to get more ideas, but please don't think we have not been talking about how we can get that open. We talked about housing virtual teachers up here. So, so these are things that I just want everyone to know. You're not operating in a vacuum. That we've been having these conversations, but we wanted to hear specifically from you all tonight. So that's it.
No, no, I think you asked a valid question, so no, thank you.
Hello, my name is Morgan Hoke. Thank you guys for coming. I specifically moved here for my kids to go to this school. I live on Friends Creek Road. It's way back there. I hope the board realizes in the winter, I have to use my ATV to get out of my driveway to get to 550. And I don't personally have good internet, so my kids couldn't do virtual school. And I know I'm not the only parent in the Sabillasville area where that's a problem. So I hope you guys do put in, that is a factor. And that was it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aubrey Harbaugh. I had 3 kids go through this school. My youngest is a 5th grader this year. She's very excited to be able to stay in her school for what may be her last year, so thank you for that. As Mrs. Fermi said, this has not been a recent battle. This has been a long-term battle. My oldest, who is now in college, we went through this with when she was in school. So, but I guess the thing I'm hearing is that small schools are like bad, like cost-effective wise, but I feel like our students are better served by a smaller school. The pandemic is a perfect example of this because our kids were able to get back into the classroom for 4 days a week, way ahead of some of the larger schools. So I feel like a smaller school better serves our students, and I think that's what our focus should be. Thank you.
So let's talk about a marketing plan. If we put in a marketing plan now and communicate with the whole northern Frederick County and say, hey, open enrollment, we've missed it, right? Open enrollment is over. So that's not good. Is there any way we can push the open enrollment to open? And maybe we can prove numbers increase now going into this final year, and then we don't have to worry.
You know, again, we can't make a yes or no kind of decision as 3 members here. We will take that suggestion back and share it with the full board. There are open enrollment. I'm trying to channel Dr. Albin here, and it's not going very well. I believe that they limited the marketing area for that open enrollment to Yellow Springs.
Which doesn't make sense either.
Well, I think because of transportation, and it was the elementary school that was within I think it was within transportation distance that already was at or over. There was a specific reason to do that. And I don't know that, I think that they took the board's motion and did a very specific thing with it in that case. So we can go back, we can revisit that conversation, we can gather some more background, and we can ask your question to the full board.
And is it that we're not looking for a shuffle of the current enrollment in this feeder area, meaning Catoctin feeder area? That's why we would have gone to a Yellow Springs to pull in. We couldn't shuffle within Emmitsburg, Thermont, Sabillasville. We need to go get them from out of that area and put them.
So I could be wrong, but I think that open enrollment for this year was the whole county. And and we had the 3 students, which is the 3 students. But I believe that open enrollment for this year was the whole county. I believe transportation was a possibility, but certainly not guaranteed. And as you know, we had the 3 students or the 3 families who said yes on open enrollment.
So I go back again to the marketing. Can we create a marketing plan so that people know? I think that would really have a big impact because I don't think people know. I don't know how you communicated, but maybe take a look at that and see if we could do better. What do you think?
I mean, it is very much on our list to bring to the board. Okay. Yes, great. Yes, thank you.
Actually, that kind of brings something to my mind because when we said we were going to close the school and then we're leaving it open this year, did that kind of mess up maybe the open enrollment because it was kind of, I don't know if it was around the same time, it seems like it kind of was. So did we actually get, I guess that's my question, were the open enrollment numbers skewed? Just because, like, I know when I enrolled online, it just automatically put in Thurmont primary, and then later they were like, okay, we put you in the Sabillasville. So I don't know whether the timing of it would have kind of messed up and skewed possibly some of the open enrollment numbers as well. Just a possibility. So.
Thank you all so much for sharing. Is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening?
And I don't know if we want to, if there are any students who wanted to speak, we certainly would hear from you as well. But I also saw you.
Hi guys, I'm Kelsey. I'm the secretary of the PTO. I know I've talked to you guys a couple times through email and at the meetings and everything. Thank you guys so much for coming up. I just wanted to say that, like, we really do appreciate it, and just the genuineness that you three specifically have expressed, and like you can see you really are trying. Something I know that was talked about last year, that was talked about at one of our PTO meetings, was the suggestion of kind of like a farm to table option. Obviously not, making our own meat, but putting in a garden that could service all of the students for the county. I believe you were told it was too expensive, right? Or it wouldn't work, or yeah. So that was something I know we had talked about, just as kind of an option. So, the school wouldn't increase our enrollment like you're looking to do. But it would, help bring other kids up here so they can experience what our kids get to experience on the daily basis. The other thing I wanted to say too is I think the charter school, like in terms of longevity, would be probably our best option. And I've heard Alicia and seen her conversations. And I do know that, just from seeing her interactions and hearing her conversations, that it is a very viable option to go the conversion route and not just the typical charter route. So that was it.
Final call. Would anyone like to speak this evening? Yes.
I'm not very good at public speaking, so that's why I'm at the last minute. My name's Jane Savage. I work here at the school. I know you want ideas, but I think the best thing for this area is that they have the public school. It's a unique area because of location, socioeconomics. I know we had talked about the formula for staffing had changed, and therefore the education wouldn't be equitable for the students here. But it seems to me that if you take them out of their culture here where they learn, that's not equitable either for the students here. So I think it should remain a public school, and maybe the pre-K. I know that doesn't affect the numbers, but maybe if we could look into before and after care. I do get quite a few phone calls asking, do you have any suggestions for daycare? Well, I can't give that to them anyway, but they tell me that it's very limited. So maybe we could look at that. Thank you for coming up. I sincerely appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Sadie Wiles. I'm a teacher for Frederick County. I'm actually coming back to Sabillasville this year.
And my son is one of the children who is on the open enrollment. I signed him up to bring him along. I am a longtime resident of Wolfville, which is also another small school. Wolfville and Sabillasville being two of the smaller schools in Frederick County, usually are the schools that are fighting to keep their schools open. And I know a lot of community members in my area of Wolfville are worried what happens if Sabillasville closes, Wolfville's next. The pre-K program is a wonderful idea. I taught pre-K at Wolfville Elementary for 6 years until that program was taken from Wolfville and to Frederick and to Lincoln. It was a great program. My class was filled every year. The kids benefited so well for those kids. This school is an awesome school. I worked here before. That's why I came back, because I loved it. I love the community. I lived in Sabillasville for 10 years. You can't get any more community-oriented than the small communities. The kids are kids you take with you forever. Every school I worked at in Frederick County has been a smaller school, and you just get a better relationship with your kids, and your classes and your product is an awesome product. I am a product of Wolfville Elementary School. So thank you for coming out and showing your support for the small schools. It means a lot to not only the parents in the community, but the teachers who do love teaching in the small schools and want those small schools to continue. So thank you.
As we prepare to close for the evening, any final comments? Board members, would you all like to make any final comments?
So my final comment is that there are no final comments right now. So we are closing this meeting, but we really welcome the conversation. So we need to continue hearing from the community. We have all of our board meetings at 6 p.m. All have public comment before them. If you don't want to come down to Frederick, you can email the full board. You can email individual board members. You can call our board administrative assistant, and she passes on phone messages. So we are definitely listening, and we, the three of us, will continue to meet, and we're going to consolidate your ideas with some of our ideas and present all of the information to all 7 members. So no final conversations. We're always listening. And, you know, just personally, the process here has been, you know, I think about my first year on the board. You know, we were sitting there during like one of the worst budget years. This is like 8 years ago, and we were looking at costs of schools, and I was like, why don't we just close schools, you know? And I realized how terrible that was, you know, and how I had said that without thinking about people and community. And I don't know, that was 8 years ago. And, you know, when you're just looking at the numbers on paper, you see those things. And then we have to make decisions in the interest of students first, community, staff and teachers, and taxpayers, and it's balancing all those things. So thank you for continuing to engage.
Thank you very much for the conversation and for your heartfelt comments and specific ideas. This was very helpful for me as a board member, and to have a deeper understanding actually of some of the issues at hand and some of the ideas that you have. Thank you.
I'll just say thank you again one more time. Ms. Wiles, I didn't see you back there because you're right in the line of sight. She's one of my son's former teachers from a smaller elementary school. And I just wanted to leave you with the thought of me sitting here looking out over a field of corn and soybeans, and that like what a unique opportunity that is for our students to be able to see that. And I want everyone here to know that those are things that are important to me, and wanting to preserve those experiences for our children. So one of my takeaways from tonight is this whole idea about ag preservation, that this money is set aside to help prevent development, but we have potential unintended consequences of that. That's a conversation I could perhaps have individually with the county executive or Ann Bradley from Ag Preservation, and just to just make sure, because it's a good overall program, but we're seeing some potential negative impact from that. So I think that gives me something to dig into, to say, hey, look, we need to look at this more carefully. So I want to thank you for your comments tonight. And there's one other thing that we had talked about when we were having our discussions. There was one other thing. Why is that escaping me right now? Is it outdoor programs? Oh, teacher training. So Mount St. Mary's, Hood College. I know I went to Towson, and we had the Ida Tall Center for Elementary Education. That's where the teachers learning to become teachers could come in and teach. So those are things that we were talking about. So again, bring your ideas in, because I think we need to work together to carve out the best future for our students. And that's really what it's all about in the community. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out on your Tuesday night.
Thank you again so much. We really appreciate you sharing your time and your wisdom to help these 3 board members to work with the community. And again, communication is still open. Please continue to reach out. And we wish you a safe journey home. So thank you.